DreamWorks' most underrated villain.
There is an art when it comes to making a villain. The art of making them evil. The art of making them hateable.
I feel like that's the only thing the original Cars guy was. He was just really, he was a dick. But that's about it.
And the art of making them tragic.
Tai Lung was cool.
Of course, different villains excel at different aspects. And for animated villains, I think one of the best artists for that is without a doubt DreamWorks, may it be their newer pieces or their older ones. I've praised DreamWorks before because
DreamWorks, like, okay, Kung Fu Panda's gotta have the best villains ever. But my favorite villain, personally, is the boogeyman from Rise of the Guardians. Rise of the Guardians is a good fucking movie. I love Rise of the Guardians. Um I love Rise of the Guardians.
their catalog of baddies has always been amazing,
What?
even if they've claimed two of my best videos, which I am still pissed about. And I think they've been pumping out bangers ever since their early days. And for today's video, it's just me providing you with the receipts of their greatness, because today I want to give my flowers to one of the most underrated animated
They have to put the filter on there? That's bullshit.
films of all time. A movie that was passed over when it came out and is now a cult classic, appreciated for how beautiful it looked and how ahead of its time it was. Though I won't be covering the movie as a whole because that's like walking off a cliff for my channel. So
Yeah.
instead, I want to yap about one of DreamWorks' finest and most underrated villains. A villain that is sadly left out in conversations because he's not a cool, flashy snow leopard or an aura farming wolf. A
Dude, Death was a cool motherfucker. I forgot about him.
villain that not a lot of people recognize because Prince of Egypt was robbed of its well deserved recognition. Today, my friends, let's dive into the story of two brothers whose love for each other only stoked the flames of the tragedy that befell on them. The tragedy of being on opposing sides. Today, my friends, let's talk about DreamWorks' most underrated villain, Rameses.
Ramses. I will say, the difference between the movie Ramses and the play that I watched was very significant. Ramses in the play, at the very end of it, spoiler alert. If you haven't watched the musical, then close your ears or whatever. But Ramses in the play was much, much more forgiving than Ramses in the movie that I've seen. Very interesting.
Before we start, let's talk about the whole antagonist or villain thing. For one, I don't care. I say villain for engagement and simplicity's sake. And second, I think Ramesses qualifies as a villain. For those of you who think he's just all sympathetic and has done nothing wrong or worse, justify slavery of all things, I think you should take a long walk and contemplate. For sure, Rameses is a layered character, and we are meant to sympathize and even like him. However, we cannot overlook the major flaw in his character. But before we get into the juicy meats of Rameses, let's first talk about his presentation.
He's bald, for one. That's gonna be me in 5 years! Look at that. Oh my god, it's terrible. I can't even. It's so bad. Dude, it's so bad. Why do you think I wore a cap? Like a toboggan or a beanie for the first little bit of my channel only.
Which honestly isn't much visually. Sure, when he was first shown to
Also,
was
okay, there we go. What in the actual fuck is that hairstyle? I get it's like Egyptian times, but like ancient Egyptians, but like what barber in ancient Egypt was looking at that and going, Yeah, that's fire.
he was a kid, I believe he also knows a thing or two about monsters and sprites, and that gave me a good chuckle when I saw him rocking that cut. But when we see him as an adult, he honestly just
He still has it too. As an adult, look at this shit. He still has it. Chopped.
looks like another generic Egyptian NPC, with ancient Egyptian garb and gold because he's royalty. Sure, he got dripped out with a Nemes and even more gold when he became pharaoh, however, nothing really stood out for me. And I think this is another thing that separates him from his fantastical DreamWorks contemporaries. Do I think it's a bad thing that he's more grounded and realistic? Not really. It's what the movie called for, and he is easily distinguishable from other characters. And the thing about presentation is, it's not all about the visuals, because by Raw, his voice work was the highlight of the whole film for me. He was voiced
Yeah, his voice acting was fire.
by Ray Fiennes, who I think is born to play the villain. You may know him as Amongo from Schindler's List or as President Snow from the Hunger Games. And
What? Are you serious?
this is his first ever animated villain role, and I feel like he's secretly an ancient pharaoh that contested God. His performance in this film was simply spectacular. I love how each and every emotion pours out into his voice. The jovial banter between the two brothers, the sadness, the eventual anger. It was an amazing experience hearing all of it. That is not even mentioning the angelic singing voice he has whenever the film goes Disney, and we sing along to the tune of God bringing down holy justice upon Egypt.
Yeah, that was wild. In the story, I get that that's what happens, but like, oh my god, that's it's like I don't know even how to say it.
Overall, I get that by just looking at images or muted clips from him, he doesn't look all that. Well, in comparison to Big Baby Man over here or Flamboyant Peacock, he doesn't look that
Flamboyant
interesting. And I
peacock.
think it's a shame that that's the first impression some people will get, because beneath his muscular frame is a core that I think trumps most modern villains, where sympathy and tragedy isn't just an extra seasoning.
That was really sad. This scene where his son dies, really sad. In the musical, not in the movie, he doesn't like. At least his wife isn't shown. Um, but in the musical, he did have a wife, and I was almost brought to tears watching this scene play out. I mean, because I mean, obviously, his son wasn't the only one to fall like that. Fall, I guess, in the story, fall victim to their parents' ignorance, but it was still really sad to see this because it was very the actors did an amazing job. The actors did an amazing job. Um, it was I don't know, it brought me to tears.
To save the character. The story of Ramses and Moses is honestly, it's not an original one. Of course, this is just a dramatization of the events in the book of Exodus in the Bible. You all know what happened there. Moses is a Hebrew that was adopted by the royal Egyptian family because he drifted on the river. He grew up as royalty but then discovered his true lineage and realizes that slavery is wrong. He then came to free his people and do God's will. Locusts, frogs, infanticide, the Red Sea parting, and the Ten Commandments.
Okay, one thing I do want to bring up is that while watching the movie and the play, I think both of them bring this up. I was like, after right after Moses realized, oh crap, I'm not an Egyptian, he was like, oh, slavery's bad because I'm a Hebrew and Hebrews are enslaved. And I'm like, so you only just figured out I mean slavery were bad when um you found out that you would have been one of those people to be enslaved. But then later they were like, he was like, as an Egyptian, he just didn't see it as a bad, like he just chose to close his eyes to it because that was normal to him. I don't know. They both bring it up, and and then Moses was like after like he let his future wife get away and saved his future wife's um sisters. They were like trying to praise him, like, oh, he's a hero or whatever. He's like, no, don't, please. I've done nothing my whole life, and I supported something, or I was ignorant to something that is awful and that is going on in my kingdom. I really like how how like he realized like I need to do better.
You all know this. This movie is just basically retelling the story with some artistic and narrative changes. One of which is Rameses being the adopted brother of Moses. In the source material, the Pharaoh of Egypt at that time was unnamed. So, already from the get go, we know that there will be tension between these two characters, a dangling matchstick over an oiled canvas. And I think the movie handled the relationship between the two characters beautifully. From the minute we see them together, there is that brotherly love that warms the soul, the boys will be boys feeling. We see them racing with their horses, causing environmental damage.
I hate that term, by the way. Boys will be boys. I fucking hate that. I mean, for more obvious reasons, like people using it to be like derogatory towards women, mostly. Like they can get away with it because they're a boy, like that type of bullshit. But like, I just hate that term because it sounds snotty.
That would get them a lot of infraction points if this were in Need for Speed Most Wanted. They're rascals, scallywags, and they know it. The people know it, and it gets them into trouble, which is bad
A lot of
because
trouble.
they're royalty. They have a standard to uphold, and this is especially true for the firstborn of the pharaoh. It's immediately communicated to us the pressure that is inherited by Rameses, the expectation from him because he is next in line, the heir to the throne, and this is constantly reminded to him by his father, reprimanding him for all the antics he does with Moses, telling him how he should uphold tradition and to not be the weak link of the dynasty. This obviously weighs down on Ramesses. Not only the pressure of becoming good enough to be pharaoh, but also the pressure of becoming good enough for his father.
I also, um, another difference between the musical and the movie is that in the musical we actually see the pharaoh die. Like we see him die. In the movie, at least as far as I can remember, we don't.
So yeah,
Whoops.
daddy issues.
I don't want this shirt for me. I feel like I don't have I have a good relationship with my father, but I feel like this would be really funny to just have. Imagine going into a Walmart with that shirt, just like that.
It's also shown to us that Moses gets to skate by any type of repercussions because he doesn't have any responsibility to uphold in the future.
Which is bullshit. Uh if Moses would have stayed as an Egyptian prince, that is bullshit. I feel like uh, you're still royalty. You're still royalty. Bot tries selling something here, gets sent to the shadow zone. Yeah, that's what happens usually.
He's the secondborn. They can be more lenient with him because he won't be Pharaoh. And in any other stories, this would be the catalyst for conflict between the two brothers. Moses being free and causing trouble for his brother, while Ramesses gets to eat all the consequences. But
But that's not how it goes. Little recap. I watched this play yesterday. It was the Prince of Egypt. Really like it. I am not very religious, but I really, really like it. Um, it was very, very interesting and very, very entertaining. Actors, crew, everybody that was a part of it did a fantastic job. I watched the movie later. It was amazing. I love this movie. So I'm watching a video about the villain of the movie, which is Moses's brother, Rameses.
I appreciate that this wasn't the angle they took. Sure, Rameses gets upset at Moses, he tells him the exact same thing I said earlier. However, Moses is so endearing, the animosity between them just dissipates. Rameses actually enjoys their rambunctious antics. He participates actively because I think that's the only time he feels actually free. Moses, on the other hand, is not just some rowdy younger brother. He actually tries to take on more punishment than what was given to him. He apologizes and defends his brother. He sees how unfair he is treated and tries to make everything better for him.
Peak brother, by the way. Ain't this the movie that had Shrek as an intended punishment for being last lackluster in working on this movie, only for this to flop and Shrek to be a box office hit? I don't know anything about that. I just watched the movie yesterday. I just watched the movie yesterday, dog. Um, I don't know if this was a flop though. I don't know if this was a flop. Was Prince of Wow. No, it was not a box office flop. Um, it was a financial and critical success that made animation history upon its release in 1998. It won an Oscar for Best Original Song when You Believe, performed by Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey. So I don't think it was a flop. There were some censorship issues, but that's about it. Like it was banned in some countries, but that was probably just because of religious and creative differences. I just know that when the first Shrek was being worked on, people sent it said it was a punishment called getting Shrek. I don't know, man. I think this movie is great. I don't consider it a flop at all.
This dynamic between them is so refreshing. They're not your bog standard brothers that implode because of envy or grudges. They're loving brothers who have each other's back.
I don't care if this is a hot take or not. This movie is 10 times, 100 times, a million times better than The Lion King. This movie is better than The Lion King in almost every fashion ever. Lion King is the most mid-ass, boring-ass Disney movie I've ever watched in my entire life. I would rather watch Fox and the Hound 2 over The Lion King. Okay, I looked it up and yeah, Prince of Egypt was the movie. It didn't flop or anything, but for unperforming it, okay. I don't know why it would be. I mean, maybe at the time when it came out, I don't know. I won a fucking Oscar. Maybe, I don't know.
They
I mean, you're right because you looked it up, but like, I don't know why the fuck it would flop.
get along even after conflict and they support each other genuinely. It's really heartwarming to see, and that is the main reason why their flaws, especially Rameses, are so heartbreaking. Being born and raised in a privileged family in ancient times, there is standard evil in them that is a sign of the times. Certain customs that were normal back then were their everyday life. Of course, there is the pampering and the luxury, but there is also, of course, the condescension.
When Shrek was being worked on in the 90s, DreamWorks did not have big hopes for it. Princess of Egypt was the one they were banking on to be a blockbuster. Oh. And when Shrek did better than this movie, they were like, oh yeah, let's make 5 more of them because that won't get old.
Attention, the disregard for the lives of those they
And a few holiday specials.
deem lower than them. Here is your reminder that their empire is built on the back of slaves, the Hebrews. However, that's not the extent of their cruelty. It's also shown to us their mistreatment for other cultures and especially women, how they treat them as objects and trophies.
Yeah, super misogyny over here.
Rameses in particular only sees them as tools to satisfy them, pawning off this girl to Moses for his own personal use. It's disgusting, but not unrealistic. It is royal evil at its most.
I thought Shrek 3 was good, the fourth one though. Yeah, and I know Shrek 5 is going to be ass. It's going to be terrible. You know how I know it's going to be terrible? The animation. They're trying to kidify it. Like they tried to kidify a bunch of other movies. Bro, in the first Shrek, Shrek calls Donkey a stubborn jackass in a PG movie. Back then, PG meant what it was supposed to be PG. Like, if you didn't want your little kindergartner saying jackass in elementary school, you would just tell them parental guidance. That's what PG stands for. But now PG literally means super kiddie movie. Super kiddie movie. PG-13s can get away with one fuck, but fucking PG movies, I just, it's a whole thing.
Base form. The thing is, this is not only present with Rameses, but also with Moses. And similar to what I said in the Chick Hicks video, which you should watch, I love when the
I'm
protagonist.
sorry, hold on. What was that video title? Chick Hicks is Pixar's perfect asshole. So yeah, he's just an asshole. The the antagonist in the original Cars is just a dick. He's just an asshole. That's the only like villainous thing about him.
Which you should watch. I love when the protagonist.
So, okay, one, the auto mod told me to be wary of this message, but Chick Hicks picks dicks chicks. What? I mean, wait. Is that his name? Chick Hicks?
And the
That's his name?
Chick Hicks video.
Chick Hicks is his name. Picks dicks chicks? Why do you think my auto mod was trying to restrict the message? Because of Hicks? As in, like, country? I don't know, man. I live in the middle of nowhere.
Which you should watch.
It's fine.
I love when the protagonist and the antagonist parallel each other from the start.
It didn't auto mod that. You literally just said dicks. It didn't auto mod that. Oh, dang it. My chat wasn't in view the entire time. There we go.
Because it gives us a control point to see the growth of the hero. At the start, we see the two sharing this major flaw, the disregard for any human life they deem unworthy. However, as the film went on, this flaw of theirs and their response to it becomes the friction point for their characters. When Moses realized that he was not royalty and that chucking babies in rivers is actually bad, he.
Oh, yeah. Another thing I forgot to mention. He was like, I never really looked at this artwork before. You actually killed babies? Yeah, dude.
He saw the cruelty in his family, the cruelty they inflict on other people, and he had a change of heart. The thing is, at this point, Rameses was given even more responsibility, even more reason
So was Moses, to be fair.
to uphold tradition, a tradition that is laced with the blood of slaves. He cannot see the same cruelty Moses saw. He only focused on being good enough for the throne for his father. So he follows his lead to the T.
Yeah, Egypt was like that. I mean, I'm not defending slavery, and I doubt you are too, but I going back into that time, most people were just like, yeah, that's everyday life. Unfortunate and not good, and I'm glad we changed. But yeah, that's what people were just like back then. I guess not Moses, though, when he realized that he would have been one of them.
Using the same ruthless and evil conducts he did. And with this conflict with their moral standpoint, the two brothers are tragically separated. Moses, not being able to stomach their cruelty any longer, runs away and leaves it all behind. Rameses, the sole bearer of all the responsibility, remains in Egypt, remains.
Also, I fucking hate the wig. That's a wig. I hate that. I mean, it's like iconic because it's on the fucking like cover of the movie, but my God, does it look really bad on him.
In the evil ways of his family, and this destroyed both brothers, especially Rameses. For beyond him being a malicious royal, he is shown to us first and foremost as a loving older brother. He was confused on why Moses had to run, confused on why suddenly their way of life was wrong, and he was, above all else, heartbroken when Moses turned his back on Egypt, turned his back against Rameses. That was quite honestly my favorite scene of the movie. You can feel the torture both brothers felt at that point, and that immense loss was highlighted and emphasized when, after a few years of being MIA, Moses returned to Egypt before.
Yeah, he returned to Egypt, and his brother was like, Moses, Moses, you're back. Hugs him, was like, you can be back in the royal court. You can, and Moses like, nah, twin, free the slaves. And he was like, what the fuck? I can't do that. You're joking. You must be joking. And he was like, nah, twin, free the slaves. You, I would have been like, now, okay, I'm not going to compare myself to a cruel Egyptian pharaoh, but hypothetically, let's just say me and my brother like ran away from home, from me or whatever, and I don't see him for 10 years, 15 years, and he comes back, and I'm like really excited to see him, and he's like, nah, twin, and then tells me to do something. I'd be like, what?
the new pharaoh. It's scenes like this that I live for. When the narrative foil faces each other and see how different they are now. I love that there is still
Moses' hair, by the way, is way better here. Way better.
no animosity between the brothers. I love the joy Ramesses showed when his brother, whom he thought had died, is now in front of him. I love the happiness Moses displayed when he found out that Ramesses is now finally Pharaoh. And with this power, he pardoned every sin his brother has committed and longs to return him to their abode. It's such a sweet moment between the two, a moment of reprieve for the coming storm. In spite of their joyous reunion, things have changed between them. Their convictions now even stronger, and they came to a head when their goals opposed each other. Moses came asking to free his people, and Ramesses stood by their family's tradition and refused. After a Disney performance by Penn and Teller, it's made
Penn and Teller. Hotep and Hawaii. That's funny. I like that. I like that a lot.
It clear that Rameses does not take the threat of God seriously, that he is now the power, that he is that of a god too. But still, at that moment, he was Moses' brother first, so he tries to convince him to come back to be like how everything was before. But it was too late. Moses cannot be complacent with their family's cruelty.
Also, something that I noticed while watching the movie is that he actually did think that he built a better Egypt than his father. And I know that because he built a statue of himself that was like twice as big as his dad's.
Any longer, and making it clear to Ramesses that he wants his people free. And this is what broke Ramesses. Not that he was opposing him as pharaoh, not that he wanted to undermine his achievements and the further progression of Egypt. Ramesses was devastated
Lamau dick
that
measuring
his brother
contests.
returned
Real.
not for him. I cannot repeat this enough, but their chemistry in this movie is so heart-wrenching. We can still see the love between them. We can still see how they try to convince one another to their ideas.
See, look at that shit.
Still see the love between them. We can still see how they try to convince.
Look at that. You can see it here. That's like twice as big.
One another to their
Ramesses is bald. Yeah, that's gonna be me in 5 years, twin.
ideals. We can still see the two brothers that raced each other in the beginning of the movie. And this does two things. It makes Ramesses even more tragic of a character and even more of a villain with how he stood by his pride as pharaoh and stood by the evil ways of his family. It's brilliant storytelling. Even though it is technically just a retelling, it gives us two sides to root for. We root for Moses to free his people, and we root for Ramesses to see the error in his ways.
Yeah, he did. He was very prideful. Like, just in the way he spoke in the movie, it was very clear. He had a lot of pride. You know, the I am Pharaoh, I am the sun, the stars, and the whatever bullshit. I have all the power. And then gets immediately checked as like 2 seconds after he says that.
Unfortunately, the latter did not happen. And if you know your Bible stories,
Was it Saiyan Saga Vegeta level? I don't know, bro.
you know what tragedy befalls them. So
The fuck even like wait, was it Saiyan Saga Vegeta level? I'm sorry, I totally misread that. Like like how prideful he was. Yeah, like he was super prideful. Um he literally was like, I am your god. Besides for, Ra and all those other gods. Um um but he was basically like, I can do whatever the fuck I want, and you can't do anything about it, pussy. And then he was immediately rain checked. Immediately rain
Oh
checked.
yeah, God plagues Egypt, Rameses holds
Look at
fast to
that
his
shit.
purpose.
He
It's
got
a
he
story
got
that is as well
flattened.
known as Dragon Ball. The thing is,
You literally, Wendy, you literally called that out. You called that shit out. Holy shit! And it's the Fortnite doing the dance.
even with all of the devastation that Rameses thought Moses brought to them, he does not lay a hand on his brother. In fact, he's actually welcome to come and go inside his old home. Even with all of the devastation, Rameses still loves his brother. He is still patient with him, seeing this as another one of his antics like before, and just like then, he has the sole responsibility of reaping the consequences. I love their conversation in their old hangout place, how Rameses was so close to realizing his mistake. But his scar runs deep. His father's words still ring in his head.
Yeah, he was very much controlled by the words of his dad. Like he I feel like in the movie he was very he's still a villain, but he was a very conflicted character. Um he was like this close every time Moses was talking to him, I feel like. But the only reason he didn't go through with that is because he needed to uphold tradition, upholding all of the requirements that the old pharaoh had in place, that his father had in place.
And come out of his mouth. He cannot give up now. He cannot be the weak link. And this causes him and Moses the greatest pain. As the final straw, God took the breath out of every firstborn. This includes Ramesses' son. The voice performance in this was
Correction, I'm gonna be that guy. Actually, he took the firstborn son of everybody who didn't paint the like the borders of their doors with sheep's blood. If they put sheep's blood on like the on their doors, then God would pass by their house. And if they didn't, then he would take the life of each firstborn of that household.
haunting. Ramesses didn't explode with anger. Instead, there was sadness in his voice, immense sadness and defeat, conceding to the will of God. There was also the final vestiges of love and patience towards his brother. What broke me was this was also a moment of grief for Moses. That though this was for a greater purpose, it caused him so much pain to see his brother in such a state. This is why people argue whether or not Rameses was an antagonist or a villain. It's moments like this where we sympathize with his tragedy.
Oh, shoot, didn't even mean to bring that up. But seriously, I would still classify Ramses as a villain, but a very conflicted one. Very conflicted one. Um, I feel like he definitely had good in him, but um, but he chose not to like use that. He he only let the Hebrews go when he was severely punished. That being said, I don't understand. I feel like Ramses would have let the Hebrews go if it was just his son. All the other people feel like they didn't need to die. Why did like okay, I'm gonna look this up. What do I know?
Of course, after this, the crash out against Moses and his people followed,
Crash out.
and we all know how that ended.
Ramesses being
Is
the
it
only
justified to
survivor.
eliminate the Hebrews? No, it was an evil act. but was it human to be irrational and be vengeful because of the loss of your child? Absolutely. But then again, I don't support I don't support genocide. So this was the essence of Rameses' character. We did not focus so much on his evil side, but rather we focused on the tragedy of his story. He was a villain that didn't feel like a villain, and I think that is such a hard feat, and I commend DreamWorks for finding that fine line. Again, sadly, not a lot of people know the story, and it's a damn shame.
No,
Which is why
yeah.
I and many others are doing it justice by telling you guys about him. And this
Yeah, no. Damn good video. Damn good video. Watch the fucking movie. It's called Prince of Egypt. It's free on YouTube with ads. Literally no reason not to watch it. It's free. And if you have YouTube Premium, you don't have to watch the ads either. It's free. All right. Damn good video. Damn good video.